Are you here to talk about honesty and transparency and integrity and journalism?
Defines all my journalism.
Oh, yeah.
Tick all those boxes, truth under power. No, look...
The tabloids have got a case to answer on occasion,
yeah, you're quite right. And I think some of the people attacking the BBC are nowhere as near to the BBC in terms of integrity.
Newspaper. You have to pay your licence.
Including Donald Trump himself. I think standards matter, and the BBC got this wrong. Although let's not use it. One, to attack the BBC and totally undermine it, as some of its enemies want to do, and two, pretend that Trump didn't try to incite a coup to stop himself.
That's not the point.
Because he lost that election fairly and squarely,
This is typical.
He tried to overturn.
This is nothing to do with what Trump did or didn't do. The BBC lied in that Panorama programme. That was a television lie.
They made a mistake.
They spliced two comments together to make it appear he was saying something he didn't say. What his motives were up to. Kevin, they lied in that Panorama programme.
That's true. The thing that they appeared to show him saying, he did not say.
He didn't.
In the way they showed.
He said both of those things in the same speech. Now, the edit was a mistake.
54 minutes apart, those words.
Yeah, in the same speech, at an occasion where he was accused of inciting the riots. So do you think they materially misrepresented President Trump?
I do.
You think it was an outright lie?
I do. I think it was a television lie.
No,
Kevin, do you think they materially misrepresented him?
He said both of those things, and we know he was asking the results in some states to be to change so he could win. We know he had all those legal cases that were all dismissed. We know he claimed he didn't lose that election and it was stolen from him, and he did lose that election.
Yes, sorry. Look, I'm going to weigh in here. You say that he said both those things in the same speech, but he said them in completely different contexts.
Right.
When he was talking, in the earlier part of the speech, he was talking about the march on Capitol Hill, and he said it should be a peaceful march, and the process should be peaceful. He did. We may not like it, but that's what he said. At the end of the speech, when he said we fight, and that was spliced with what he said nearly an hour earlier, he wasn't talking about the march on Capitol Hill. There, he was talking about erroneously the election being stolen. Now, I think that was irresponsible and dangerous for him to say, but that's not the same as saying and implying in that clip that he was inciting those marchers to violence. Secondly, after that spliced clip was transmitted, immediately afterwards, there was another clip showing the Proud Boys marching on Capitol Hill. It made it look as if they were responding to Trump's call to arms. That footage of them marching on Capitol Hill was shot over an hour before the president began speaking. Now, I am no defender of Trump, but I'm no defender of lousy, bent journalism either. And I'm sorry, that Panorama documentary was lousy, bent, dishonest journalism. We should all be ashamed of it.
Trump was a defender of the Proud Boys and white supremacists.
You're ignoring the facts, Kevin.
You were taking a 12 to 15 second clip in a full programme, programme that was broadcast a year ago, and I'm not aware of any big public complaints about it.
No, because it played
3.5 years previously, and ignoring all the other evidence.
The reason that there were no complaints...
They should not...
The reason there were no complaints about that edit were because people didn't spot it. And the reason they didn't spot it was because we all, mostly, think that Trump did incite violence on Capitol Hill. So to see that edit simply confirmed our prejudice.
You know...
It was a false edit.
You know, Richard, that he attempted to stage a coup and stay in power and stop...
Yes, I believe that,
Stop the certification of the election results.
And
he wanted Congress to be halted. It's a mistake. What they did...
It was definitely a mistake. The edit was definitely a mistake.
It was a deliberate...
It wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate edit. You don't mistakenly take a clip an hour down the tape and bring it back an hour. It's not a mistake. That's a deliberate act.
Whoever put it together that way made a mistake. They shouldn't have done it.
They did make a mistake, Kevin.
And it deserves criticism, but it needs to be kept in a
It's not as if somebody did this in error by mistake, an accident. Oh, God, I hadn't realised what I'd done. It was a willful, contrived decision.
It's not the Zinoviev letter.
When we say mistake, Andrew, we're talking about an error of judgment. I mean, you call it a lie. And I would say they were doing it probably for dramatic effect, and they shouldn't have done it, and they should have made it absolutely obvious that these were two things he said at different parts of the speech.
And then the other serious error, they've known about this for months and months and months and covered it up. And then when it comes out, the response of the BBC was tin-eared, deaf and complacent.
Right,
that's astonishing.
That bit is true, but for it to be a lie, you have to have intentionally intended to mislead for it to be lie, rather than a mistake.
Well, I think they did.
Well, have you spoken to whoever put it together?
We don't know,
do we? We don't know what...
That is why we've got to be careful on saying it's a lie.
It's wrong. Television lie.
We don't know what happened in that edit suite because nobody's told us.
No.
Either it was a piece of extraordinary sloppy editing and journalism at the very least, or, and this is perfectly possible, it was a conspiracy at the top of Panorama to bend the truth to fit the story.
We in the media love talking about the media. I was listening to the commentary of Manchester City Liverpool yesterday, and they interrupted it to bring breaking news that Tim Davie had resigned, that the BBC News thought their Director General going, not to interrupt the commentary, although Liverpool fans might have wanted the match stopped because they lost 3-0. But look, you've got to keep it in a context.
Are you biased, Kevin? That's not very impartial of you.
I think it does matter, but I think Nick Robinson, the BBC presenter, was quite right when he did say editorial standards do matter. Absolutely. But at the same time, let us not ignore that there are some people trying to destroy the BBC. They'll include the White House, and the Telegraph has a very anti-BBC agenda.
Does the Mail, Andrew?
No, the BBC wants the BBC to flourish and to operate properly, and we bear in mind it's paid for by all of us.
Yes.
The BBC isn't owned by the BBC.
Do you not think...
our BBC.
Yeah, absolutely, and we pay for it with a licence fee, and it's compulsory to pay a licence fee.
And I think that is going to be in real trouble now.
Yeah, do you?
Yes, I do. I think more and more people are turning off the BBC.
How many people work at the Mail?
I don't know, actually. 600.
OK. 21,000 people work at the BBC.
Too many. It's too big.
Really?
It's too big. It's out of control. The Director General is incapable now of controlling the BBC.
This is an organisation
He's the third Director General to leave, resigning in scandal.
And who's going to want to do the job? If you are personally responsible for what every one of the 21,000 people do.
He's in charge of what's the chef programme where... MasterChef, and he's in charge of... It's too much on his plate.
Those presenters were sacked.
Yeah. There's too much on his plate.
It is an impossible job, and the BBC is held to a much higher standard than other parts of the media. The Daily Telegraph...
Because it's in the charter. It's in the charter, but it has to be impartial.
But we should recognise the BBC attempts to uphold those standards. The Telegraph... I mean, they had an invented AI story on some incredibly rich family that claimed it couldn't afford to pay a school fees.
I'll make the point again. You don't have to buy the Telegraph. You have to buy the licence if you watch television.
They have been found guilty of running misleading or fake stats on migration time after time.
Well, don't
the
read
editor
it.
never resigned.
Then don't read it and don't pay for it.
I'm not calling for that editor to resign over those mistakes, because mistakes are made. You've got to put your hand up and you've got to be honest.
Do you think the Director General could stay on in the job?
You've got to be honest. No, I think he's gone because an accumulation of moments. I think he mishandled Gary Lineker. I think that was it. Hugh Edwards.
Who's gone, by the way, Gary Lineker?
Yeah, which I regret he's gone. Hugh Edwards.
Who's gone?
Was astonishing. No, the BBC is very good at upholding its standards.
So why did Deborah Turness resign? Why did the head of news resign?
Bob Villan and the broadcaster of that. I think that was...
well, also the Gaza documentary where the young commentator whose father was the son of a Hamas minister. And they hadn't even done the checks on that.
And they didn't show it. It's got to be said. Look,
so you're saying that the Director General has resigned because of a string of problems.
I think.
Why did Deborah Turness resign yesterday?
Because it was an edit on her watch.
Yeah, and I think if the boss goes, she's done. Like it's principled and there's integrity there.
If there was an innocent explanation and it was a genuine mistake, why do two people at that level have to resign?
Yeah. Well, I think it's because
I'll tell you why. It's because Trump and the White House have turned their guns on the BBC, and he has a bully pulpit like no other. And if he goes for you and the people you're with, he can do enormous damage, and he sets his social media MAGA reactionary hordes on an organisation. Your staff are at risk to some extent now with the hate that is generated. when they're working in the US. They can be banned from the White House. But I think it's everything else, and then you top it with the world's biggest liar accusing you of lying.
Oh, the irony
he stays in power to continue lying.
I don't think it was the White House. I think it was the revelation that this ethics independent investigator had done a report, 19 pages, detailing many other problems of bias, about anti-Semitism, and
which is denied.
A whole raft of complaints.
And it was completely ignored.
And it was completely ignored.
That's
it was
why he
suppressed and covered up. It was always going to be leaked. And the response in the last week was, I thought they have got no comprehension of how this.
Do you think it was completely ignored, or do you think behind the scenes they were trying to deal with it?
We know that
they didn't respond.
We know they were trying to deal with it behind the scenes.
Would it take 6 months?
Because I've seen the reports about pushing back and saying, look, your allegations, you're taking a 19-page report as a gold standard.
So it takes the BBC with 21,000 employees, as you pointed out, Susanna, 6 months to come up with a response, and we don't. And what we got was this pathetic statement last week, which came out because the report was leaked.
And to come back to
they
what
weren't
you
dealing
said,
with it; they were burying it.
To come back about what you said, Kevin, quite rightly about Donald Trump. Donald Trump has said over and over again, whenever he's criticised or attacked, he says fake news, fake news. Doesn't that make it beholden on an organisation like the BBC, when they're going to make a documentary about him, to get it right? Because they played straight into his hands. He can legitimately turn around, point at Panorama and say fake news. They've given him ammunition.
Actually, no, as a journalist in the media, the BBC, everywhere else, you've got to be truthful. It's very hard to get to the truth, but you've got to be truthful, and that means looking at the facts and trying to present them in a way that you believe is legitimate and justified. And the BBC does that, as Good Morning Britain, ITV, the Mail and the Mirror do, from our different perspectives. We make mistakes. Of course. We all make mistakes. You've got to put your hand up when you and correct it when you make that mistake. And that's why I think the BBC is worth defending. It's
agreed.
It's a jewel in our broadcasting crown, and the news is so important in an era of people just relying on social media and just being in their own little silo.
And it's the most scrutinised news organisation in the world.
Which is why you're right. It has
all the more reason why it was staggering that they didn't deal with this when they got the evidence 6 months ago. They just buried their heads. It can't take 6 months. If it wasn't for the newspapers, we would never have known.
What happens next?
We would never have known.
What happens next at the BBC? We've got the 2 resignations. The row rumbles on. We still don't know what happened in the Panorama edit suite. We need to know. What happens next?
Well, we're going to get the chairman of the BBC, Samir Shah, who's going to appear before the Commons Committee tomorrow, I think.
If it's the BBC...
And that's going to be tricky. And he'll apologise.
If it's the BBC... and its normal response will be a whole stifling raft of new checks and regulations that won't really achieve anything. There'll be a new director general, although who wants to do that job, I do not know, because you can get more money in the commercial sector. You go in and you are kicked around, but it is such an important job in global broadcasting. There will be candidates.
Somebody in that director general's job who's got a background in editorial?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, didn't Nigel Farage say you need someone who has got a background in PR? Oh. I thought, that's not who you need in charge of the BBC. You need somebody who knows journalism inside out.
Commercial.
Do you think that BBC Verify should be verifying Panorama in the future?
Well, that's the great news organisation they set up to verify their facts. It obviously... Panorama slipped through the cracks.
There are radio and TV programmes in which the BBC looks at the BBC all the time. And yes...
Newswatch, I think, is one of them.
I'm sort of joking.
I'd quite like to see it. But I think we just have to keep it in... It's a big mistake.
Yes.
It's got ramifications, but keep it in some sort of perspective.
Well, the trouble is, it's not a local radio edit. It's Panorama. It's the flagship. It's the flagship programme.
Even your flagship programme will make mistakes, and this was a very small segment, which was a mistake. The rest of the programme has not been questioned.
Well, that's like saying the fuse on a bomb is a very small component, but when it goes off, bang.
No, but it wasn't the only charge against Trump. And
I wish we could watch the programme, but unfortunately it is no longer available to view for us all to make our own judgment.
I always think that's wrong. It should be still there with a warning. For instance, another scandal that engulfed the BBC was over the Diana interview, and that isn't screened now because...
Well, they lost the last Director General over that.
Yeah, but...
Tony Hall.
But the William Mountbatten-Windsor, the Prince of Wales, says he never wants that shown again. I think we should be able to say, yes, it can have a warning on it. I don't think this censorship is helpful. OK, right. Let's talk about other issues of trust. Just politics.
And truth-telling. And the fact that the OBR is going to produce an impact assessment from Rachel Reeves's budget proposal. It's going to be presented to the Treasury today. The budget's coming up on the 26th of November, despite the fact she told the whole country in her manifesto she's not going to increase income tax. We understand she is considering a 2p rise in income tax. Kevin, what is the OBR, and when it goes to the Treasury to present an impact assessment, what does that mean for the rest of us?
Yeah, the Office for Budget Responsibility is an organisation set up by George Osborne when he was the Tory Chancellor, which is semi-independent and marks the Chancellor's scorecard. So it says this is the impact of whatever you're doing. We predict economic growth will be this. If you do that, it'll cost people however much money you spend. That this is the total.
So what impact will putting this much income tax?
Yeah, what they produce, and you could, and it's always quite interesting on a budget day. You see the impact studies, and you see it on the economy as a whole, and then you see it on groups of people. Like if you're in the bottom 10th of income earners, or you're the top 10th of income earners, where do all the changes in tax and spending and
surely this income tax rise is only going to go on the top rate of income tax?
Well, right.
No?
Right, I think she'd be absolutely foolish to do this, and the newly elected Labour deputy leader, Lucy Powell, at the end of last week said don't put up income tax because we had that manifesto promise. Labour had that manifesto promise, no rise in the rate of income tax, national insurance, employees and VAT. You break that, you're in trouble. But, of course, what she's thought to be thinking of is increasing income tax by 2%, but then lowering
national
insurance by 2% for
but
around
only
under
for people who earn less than £50,000.
Yeah, which is most of the country. Yeah. And so therefore, workers will get a pay cut, but people who say get their money from rents or something will pay a bit more because they don't pay national insurance.
It's tortuous.
Yeah.
It's tortuous. Well, the fact is...
But the overall grab... There'll be an overall grab, though.
The fact is, they said they would not raise income tax. They also said they wouldn't raise national insurance. They raised national insurance in the last budget on employers, doesn't matter if it...
Well...
And they're going to break the manifesto again. And I can't see how a Chancellor who breaks the manifesto in such clear way can survive and should survive.
Well, speaking of Chancellors, the former Chancellor and, of course, Prime Minister for a brief period of time, Gordon Brown, will going to be sitting where you're sitting in about half an hour, talking about homelessness and his work with Prince William on that. But we will, of course, ask him what he would do if he was still Chancellor.
Rachel Reeves' great hero when she was at university was Gordon Brown. In fact, she had a poster of Gordon Brown on the wall of her digs.
She did?
That's weird.
Well, yeah. She
did, yeah. But Gordon Brown, the son of the man, has a moral purpose, and that is to make Britain fairer, help the poor. He does that now with not just food banks, but multi-banks, and getting Amazon and other companies to give stuff that might be near in the...
surplus office supplies and furniture.
He actually does it himself. I mean, he's real hands-on.
What do you think he thinks of Rachel Reeves?
But he wants the child poverty abolished, which was one of his missions. They got it down when Labour was in. It's going up again. And he wants it, the two-child Tory cap, which is utterly vile and odious. He wants it lifted. Yeah. And he always does his sums. Because he knows there's a cost. He does his sums and he thinks you can raise it on gambling.
Say, in his last speech to Labour conference as Prime Minister, he listed the Labour government's achievements, and the first on his list was the winter fuel allowance, which Rachel Reeves abolished and then brought back.
Yes.
That shows the difference between him and her.
Can we pay a tribute to Stephen Crean? He is the hero, one of the heroes, because there were a number of them, of the Huntingdon, the rail attack on the train. And he went back. I think we've got moving pictures, actually, of Stephen Crean going back to watch his beloved Nottingham Forest at the weekend. There he is. He walked around the pitch and obviously was cheered by all the football fans there. But we have this extraordinary story that, of course, he was planning to fly out to Austria on Wednesday to watch Nottingham Forest in their Europa League challenge against SK Sturm Graz, but left unable to travel, of course, because he was stabbed 6 times in that attack on the Doncaster to London King's Cross train. Apparently, Ryanair
couldn't believe this
have refused to refund him the cost of the ticket. Now, we have approached Ryanair directly to confirm this. A spokesman for the airline told Nottinghamshire Live all Ryanair airfares are non-refundable, which is why we strongly recommend passengers take out travel insurance in order to protect themselves if they can't travel.
PR.
What, in case you're on a train
and
you have to protect...
last year they've been announced only in the last week, in the billions.
Yeah, so,
it's staggering.
You have to take out travel insurance in case you're on a plane when there's somebody with a knife and you're protecting younger passengers. You have to... I mean, look, it is... Talk about torn deaf. You don't know whether to laugh or
They should have put him in seat
cry.
They should have put him up front with a pilot.
Yeah.
And
or give him free travel for the year, for the whole Europa League championship.
Anybody want to bet there'll be a U-turn by midday today?
It should be by 9 o'clock. It's scandalous.
I think the airline...
Check the profits, because I saw last week, they are making billions.
I want the planes to stay in the air, but I think the airline's management will crash
if they don't. Ryanair called Michael O'Leary.
Very quickly, what did you make of Prince William and that very open, frank interview that he gave on camera, talking about the challenges that his family is facing with illness, with Kate's illness, with his father's illness, and how open they've been with their children? It's
so different to the way the Royals have done it for years and years, which was never discussed, never talked, never even confirmed. And he's doing it in a different way, and I think that's right.
He's a different generation
to
his father. You can see that his father was nearer the father's mother, the grandmother, the late Queen. You can see it is that bright.
Yeah.
I did want to know, I did want him to be asked, actually, did you really beat up your brother and break his necklace? I'd quite like that as well.
Because that was the allegation in Prince Harry's book.
2 brothers had a scrap. Hello?
Yeah.
I never scrapped with my brothers.
Well,
I don't think that's quite nice. We argued, but we never physically...
Well, I'm afraid my brother and I did.
Not that either of mine wear necklaces, but, I mean, and actually they're both bigger than me, so...
I remember getting teased relentlessly by my brothers, but luckily no scraps between us. Let's have a quick listen to Prince William. Yeah, he's very open, he suggests, with his children. To be fair, the King's been very open about his health.
Yeah.
And in a way that... previous generations have not.
The fact we don't know what cancer he's got, but we don't need to know, in a sense, because it's his cancer. But we know he's being treated.
That is true.
Previous generations would not have even admitted.
Well, when you have friends and colleagues who have cancer, you always say, what is it? What stage? How's the treatment going?
Yeah.
So we know he's got it. We know treatment's ongoing, but we don't know which one, we don't know which stage, and we don't know what the prognosis is.
I don't think they even told George. I don't think they even told George VI he had cancer.
I think there's a limit to the openness.
Well. Yeah. Talking about cancer, of course, over the weekend we saw Davina McCall's say that the reason she spotted her breast cancer was because of these brilliant posters on the back of doors at studios.
Brilliant.
And of course a campaign run by the Lorraine programme and her brilliant producer Helen Addis, who herself checked herself because back in 2018 Dr. Hillary was doing an item on the Lorraine programme about how to check for breast cancer. So saving lives, and we're going to talk to Lorraine after 8 about that and contact that she's had with Davina McCall.
Yeah, we wish her well.
Who says thank you to Lorraine.
And she's just been through all that problems with her brain too.
I know.
These public information campaigns, whether run by the NHS or Lorraine, they're really important.
Yeah. All right, guys. Change and check. That's the message. Change and check.